Chief Raymond Holt had spent 31 years in the fire service, and in all that time, he had never once backed down from a fire. He had walked into burning buildings when everyone else was running out. He had carried unconscious children through walls of smoke. He had stood at the edge of collapsed structures and made split-second decisions that saved lives. But on this particular Sunday morning, the greatest test of his courage had nothing to do with flames. It had everything to do with a single moment of human cruelty and what he chose to do about it. The morning had started like any other day off. Raymond was in his civilian clothes, jeans, a worn flannel shirt, and boots, stopping by the corner diner on Maple Street for his usual breakfast before heading to visit his elderly mother across town. The diner was a modest place, warm and familiar, smelling of coffee and bacon grease. Raymond had been coming here for years, long enough that the waitress, a kind woman named Doris, always had his order ready before he sat down. He walked in, nodded to a few familiar faces, and settled into his usual booth by the window. But that morning, the warmth of the diner was shattered by something ugly. 2 booths down, a young man, no older than 25, was berating a busboy who had accidentally spilled a small amount of water near his table. The busboy, a slight man in his 40s named Miguel, stood frozen with a cloth in his hand, his head bowed, absorbing every word. The young man's voice was loud, deliberate, and laced with contempt. He wasn't just complaining about the water. He was using the moment to strip a human being of his dignity in front of an entire diner. The other customers looked away. Some stirred their coffee. Some studied their phones. The manager hovered near the counter, clearly uncomfortable but saying nothing. Raymond watched. He watched Miguel's shoulders tighten. He watched the shame settle into the lines of the older man's face. And something deep inside him, something forged over 3 decades of running toward danger, refused to stay seated. He stood up slowly, picked up his coffee cup, and walked over. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't make a scene. He simply pulled out the chair across from the young man, sat down uninvited, and placed his coffee cup on the table with quiet authority. The young man looked up, startled. "Can I help you?" he said, his tone sharp with irritation. Raymond looked at him calmly, the way a man looks at a fire. He's already assessed and knows exactly how to handle. "I think you can," Raymond said. "I've been coming to this diner for over a decade. Miguel here," he nodded toward the busboy, who was now watching with wide, uncertain eyes, "has been keeping this place clean and running the whole time. He works doubles on weekends. He sends money home to his family. He's never once been anything but decent to every person who walks through that door." The young man blinked. The diner had gone very quiet. "What you're doing right now," Raymond continued, his voice steady and unhurried, "isn't about spilled water. You know that, and I know that. But what you might not know is what it feels like to be on the receiving end of that kind of treatment every single day. I've watched men run into burning buildings without hesitation. I've seen people carry strangers through smoke and ash, and every single one of them, every hero I've ever known, treated the person in front of them like they mattered. Because they do." He paused, let it settle. "So I'm asking you man to take a breath. Apologize to Miguel, and remember that how we treat people when we think it doesn't matter, that's actually the only time it really does." The silence in the diner stretched like a long Sunday morning. Then something shifted in the young man's face. The hardness cracked just a little, like the surface of ice in early spring. He looked at Miguel, and in a voice that was quieter, rougher, and altogether more human, he said, "I'm sorry. That was out of line." Miguel gave a small nod, dignified and gracious. Raymond stood, picked up his coffee, returned to his booth, and finished his breakfast in peace. He didn't ask for thanks. He didn't look for applause. He was a fire chief. Putting out fires was just what he did, even the ones no one else could see. Sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is simply refuse to look away when someone else's dignity is burning. If this story moved something in you, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner Stories, where every story is a reminder that ordinary people can do extraordinary things.